I have always been drawn to the sea.
My name is Joan Hall. I'm an artist in the Child's Gallery, and I'm currently in an exhibition called Making Waves, work that deals with climate change. My interest in climate change really occurred from a personal level when I started thinking about illness and how, as we get older, we have a tendency to have various illnesses that we didn't have when we were younger. And I was thinking about how that the ocean was aging, and as the ocean was aging, we also were finding new cures for cancer, but at the same time, we were polluting it with plastic. So early works were about myself and my own journey through illness, and it then became a global concern about plastic in the ocean, climate change, and how it affects coral. I'm not interested in hitting anyone over the head with it. So my work is beautiful because I think beauty is power, and I think there is a real correlation between repetition and trauma. So all my work is made with paper that I make. I love paper, I love the water, and these two things combine. And although I grew up in the Midwest, I've been sailing since I was 16, and I've had this love affair with water as long as I can remember. The work behind me is a piece called The Times Are Changing. It's an installation that I'm making for an upcoming show. And it's similar to the two large works that are in Making Waves, On a Sea of Tears and The New Normal. My work is driven by concept, and the process is defined by the concepts, and sometimes the concepts are defined by the process. So I do this sort of back and forth, and although I trained as a printmaker, I find that I'm really a sculptor because nothing is a single piece of work. The work behind me is multiple pieces of paper that range from 8 by 10 feet to 5 by 7 feet, and I then arrange them in its undulating sculptural form. And so, although I work mostly on the wall, sometimes I have an idea that needs to be on the floor. But the show for the gallery is all on the wall, and it's all paper or it's paper and print. A lot of times I also work with metal and glass, and in the background you just heard my dog Captain. It's interesting doing a self-made video during a pandemic. Anyways, so this current work, as you look at the work, it has this relationship to how I think about the world, and that we are all connected. It's like the oceans are connected, people are connected, continents are connected. It's no longer anything in isolation. So what happens in one place also occurs somewhere else. Now there's the dog again. The New Living Reef series in the exhibition are a new body of work where I've finally been able to figure out a way to work on a smaller scale and produce pieces that I'm actually not cutting. I'm using stencils and using a technique I learned at Dudonné Paper in New York about blowing out the pulp. But I found when I was working there that I needed to come back to my own studio and figure out my way of working with this process because I needed it to be more painterly. So these are some of the component sections that will become new pieces. I'm not sure exactly. But the New Living Reef is my sort of warped sense of humor of thinking about that someday maybe the plastic and the vegetation will become this new form. And currently there is a microorganism in the ocean that is actually breaking down plastic and eating it, if you want to look at it that way. So I might not be so far off in that thinking, but I do like to sort of fantasize from what I read and what I see in order to create my work. It's almost like I think of myself that my head's a blender, and out of the blender of all of these images and visual elements comes my work. Important to me. So this is some of the paper, the way it starts out. Sometimes I paint on the paper beforehand. This is my press, which moving from St. Louis to Jamestown is a video in itself. On the press is one of my plates that was used in producing the installation that I was standing in front of, sorry. So this plate is produced by embossing bits of plastic and net and detritus I pick up along the beach. And then I use materials to produce wash tones and darks. I then, many times, will not only after I print the paper that has pulp painted on it, I paint with paper pulp onto pieces that have already been printed. I really embrace the idea of unpredictability because I think it's important that the medium speaks and the work in essence talks to me. I listen to my materials and I listen to my process. So this is a recent work that I have been working on, and here are some of the details where you can see some of the painting of the pulp. As a sailor, you have to embrace both surrender and control. It has to do with being out there and the wind is stronger than you are. Nature is always stronger. That might be my motto for climate change, that if we humans do just a little bit, nature will fix itself. So some of the component pieces that are made from embossing on the plate, I then cut because, as I said, repetition in trauma is very important. And when I'm cutting, there's something very soothing about it for me. It lets me go into this place where what's going on in the world sort of just falls away. And the ocean is important to me. It's our greatest resource. And we are related to it on a very molecular level. We have the same amount of salt in our bodies as is in the sea, same percent. Algae Bloom is a 30-foot long installation made up of over 40 panels. The work changes each time it's put up because it's installed with handmade glass pins, and I respond to the architecture of the space in which I am given. So it can be longer, it can be shorter, it can be thicker. My work combines my need to make art that is visually arresting, along with my passion for marine advocacy. The ocean has informed a lifetime of exploration.